Welcome to Woman UnZipped, a podcast featuring women who share their lives truthfully, vulnerably, and powerfully with moi, Leah Rose. I believe that sharing your stories gives you access to transformation, and that when you step into your life with commitment, everything is possible. Join me for stories and shares with women from all walks of life, careers, and lifestyles. Welcome. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women UnZipped. And I am here and I have the honor to interview Erika Lyremark, from the author and the amazing bold woman of Think Like a Stripper. This book, everyone needs to read this book, especially if you're a woman in business. She gives so many tips about visibility and business and money and getting over yourself and how to be bold and confident. And your book blew my mind. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So you obviously were a stripper, but you put yourself through school, fashion design school, and then you're a women's rights attorney. Is that correct?
No, I was going to become a women's rights attorney. I never did, but I do have a degree in women's studies with an unofficial minor in China studies.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so you stripped to put yourself through school.
Yep, that's how it started. I mean, to give my parents credit, they did give me some help. I wasn't completely on my own. They were very, very kind and generous of them to help me. But that really was my motivation. I was going to get an apparel design degree, and the program that I was going into, it was really, really intense. So think of like Project Runway, but instead of, a few weeks, like 6 weeks, it was 2 years. And the program was notorious for ending relationships. It ended I don't know if that's the reason why my relationship ended, but my relationship did end. I was in a 5-year relationship, and it ended basically like 2 weeks before the end of school.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really intense. And I had friends who were strippers, and I thought this might be a good idea for me to make enough money so I could, so I could basically would only have to work 1 day a week. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And my stripper friends were smart and studious, and they were not your stereotypical strippers, and they had,
Right.
heads on their shoulders. And so I thought, I'm gonna give it a try, but I don't want people to think that I took that decision lightly. It actually took me a whole year to really, really think about it. I was also establishing my residency because I went to a state-run school. And so it was a big, big risk for me. I come from an extremely, extremely conservative Christian family.
Wow.
And so this was like a huge no-no.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But I really wanted to do it. And more than the money, because I knew there'd be other ways that I could get loans and things like that.
Right.
But I really wanted to challenge myself, and it would be the ultimate challenge to be able to say to myself in the future, you used to take off your clothes for a living and hustle for lap dances. Like, you can survive anything.
Yeah.
I still, when I have challenges in my life and my business, I still tell myself those things.
Nice. And so what else have you done? You're a real estate?
So after I quit stripping, and when I was done with school, I quit stripping when I stripped from 21 to 31. And then I moved back to Minneapolis, where I'm from, and I started a commercial real estate company with my dad. And he and I worked on that for 10 years. And in the middle of that time, I started to get bored and feel like there was this whole other side of me that wasn't being expressed. The real estate that we were doing was industrial warehouses. So the most exciting design choices I got to make were like, should we do white walls or gray walls in this warehouse? And it was, it's a male dominated industry, specifically that sector. Most of my tenants were men. Most the other, real estate brokers I worked with were men. So 99% of my interactions were with men. So working with men, basically 9 years stripping and then 10 years in
Yeah.
real estate. I'm like, hello, what happened to the women's studies major?
Yeah.
I wanted to become a women's rights lawyer. And there's just the glamorous side of my life was missing. And it also lacked creativity. And, one of the things about myself, I'm hyper creative, which is awesome, but it's also the dark side of that is I outgrow myself very quickly.
Yeah.
So like once I've figured something out, then I cycle through and I'm ready for that next thing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking like, well, what else would I do? What else do I want to do? And I've always loved like project-based kind of things. So even, being in school all those years, I loved working on a project. I loved the semester system.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I want to be a consultant of some kind. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of consultant I would be because I have 3 years of business, like hardcore business experience. And I was a stripper. I'm smart and motivated, but how would I market myself? What would I do? And then really crazy story is I watched the world premiere of The Apprentice with Donald Trump way back in the day when that first came out. And I saw how much the entrepreneurs were struggling with just kind of like mindset stuff. And I'm like, I survived a strip club and now I'm in a male-dominated industry and I'm doing quite well. I said, I think that I want to start a business where I would help, entrepreneurs in business with kind of like mindset type of things. And so then I went to school and I got my professional coaching certification back in 2005. And I started, asking basically everyone I knew if they wanted coaching. And a lot of people took me up on it. A lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
And I just kind of started from there. And I was helping people with like mindset stuff.
Yeah.
I was also doing a lot of like, I wouldn't say like professional organizing, but like, I've been a fan of minimalism. I discovered it like in 1995. So it was like something that was really important to me, something that's really helped me out. I just love the design aesthetics of it, but mentally more than anything, it's like, it's been one of my go-tos. And so I was doing a lot of like declutter coaching with people and then, using some of my design background, clothing, style coaching. So kind of like a catch-all.
Yeah.
And I, even though I loved it and I really felt like it was my purpose and what I was meant to do, I definitely struggled to market myself. I didn't really understand marketing. Like I understood how to sell, but like marketing, I didn't really understand it. I didn't know what branding was at the time. And so I had a huge learning curve ahead of myself. And I went from, selling this very tangible, like, do you want a lap dance? Like, you give me $30 or the $30 lap dance, or do you want a table? There's like 3 options or whatever. And then in selling commercial real estate, there was a huge learning curve in learning that industry. But interestingly enough, because of my design background, like I just understand construction. I understand how to sequence and how to put things together and how to engineer things.
So cool.
And so like, that was actually really easy. It took work, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't put me in this like, this creative, like kind of like soul suck that marketing myself personally has put me in the past. And so I just, I really struggled for about 5 years, really trying to market myself. And then in 2010, I was like, I gotta pull the plug. Like this just has to happen. And so I just was like, I'm going to do it. And interestingly enough, once I didn't have that paycheck from my commercial real estate career to fall back on, I figured it out. Cause
Yeah.
like I'd spent all my savings on my business. I'd invested everything that I had. And I'm like, I have to figure this out because I have a mortgage and a dog and a car payment and all those things. So that's kind of what happened.
Yes. And I love that your journey is so relatable. Like I see a lot of what my business experience also in your story, right?
Yeah.
Like starting out and then having to market yourself and having 2 jobs and then like just having to make it work. Like,
Yeah, it's a challenge. It is a challenge for sure. And I think that so many people think like when I get to a certain place in my business, then I'm going to quit my full-time gig. But
right.
the truth is like if you are trying to do both things at once, you're probably not doing either one of them very well.
Right.
Or you're not, you're just not giving your side hustle enough time and attention. And, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've seen people when when they're like, okay, I'm quitting, and they remove the safety net, they gain traction very quickly.
Yeah.
If they're really, really committed. But I think it's incredibly difficult. It can be done. I really wasn't able to do it.
Got it. Yeah. What's that saying? Success comes from desperation.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you need to just be like pushed off the cliff.
Totally.
So you're the founder of the Daily Whip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you give marketing tips and
marketing, sales, business advice. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's jump into it.
Okay.
All right. What are the 3 biggest mistakes that you see women today make in business?
I wrote these down. I was doing my homework for this, and now I was like, oh, I haven't nailed the 9. Think of them. So hopefully 3 will come to me. So the first one is that they don't take the time to really understand their product or service. So I see people, and that was my problem. As I said, I struggled for 5 years, is because I didn't really understand my product. I didn't understand what I was selling. And so I don't know, maybe other people have done this. I don't know. I never ran across anybody. So I just kind of invented my own formula for turning my service into a product. And once I did that, it really helped me understand, the features and the benefits and your main promise. But I really struggled with that for a long time until I, turned this on its head and started doing it for myself, and then started doing it with clients. But I would say that is a huge mistake, because if you don't fully understand your product or service, it's really, really hard to market and sell it.
Yeah.
So I like to give the example of, if you've ever been to MAC Cosmetics, like at the department store or a MAC store, they know their product cold. So, they hire professional makeup artists.
Right.
And then they really give them the training that they need to really understand every single product. So I've had my makeup done at a MAC counter many times over the years. I always walk away with tons of product that I didn't know that I needed.
Right.
I love makeup. And so they're selling without really selling, simply because they know their craft and they understand the product. And this is why, if you've ever been to a networking event and someone's elevator pitch just seems really it creeps you out, and then you're just like, I have no idea what they just said to me.
Yeah.
That is someone who does not understand what their product or service is. And there's this incredible pressure to come up with this really brilliant elevator pitch. So I would say that's the second mistake, is getting too crafty with an elevator pitch. When you really understand your product or service, you don't need a slick elevator pitch, because people are going to be attracted to your energy. They're going to be attracted in the way that you carry yourself, the way that you can have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Really, really confident people who are really confident in their product or service, they don't need some slick pitch. I've never once hired someone off of their elevator pitch. I'm always like, do I like that person? Do I vibe with this person? Do they seem to know what they're talking about? So not understanding your product or service, really give yourself, really think about, how do I want to say this, is you just have to really understand your product or service. And there's, especially with service-based businesses, people don't usually put themselves to their own product.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've always had trouble with trying to figure out how to talk about coaching, or it's this experience.
Vague. Yeah.
It's vague.
Right. So it's a huge challenge. And I understand it as a service-based entrepreneur. I struggle with that for 5 years, even though I'm smart and motivated and doing the work.
Yeah.
Showing up, I'm taking risks. I was pitching myself to TV shows. I was on TV many times, radio shows. I, submitted a Oprah Have Your Own, I don't know if you remember that contest, but she had a Have Your Own TV show contest back in 2010. I put together a film crew. I made a whole video, as a whole production.
Wow.
she, I didn't get picked, obviously, but she did air part of my clip on national TV.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I was hustling my ass off. Like I was working so hard again and investing every single dime that I had into this business. So it's a huge challenge. And it's why I teach that today in my business.
Yeah.
The second thing I guess is like, having a cheesy elevator pitch. If you don't feel comfortable saying it to a human,
don't say it.
saying it, they will not be comfortable receiving it.
Yeah.
And then the third mistake is not understanding your own points of view or your own viewpoints. So when I went full-time in my business in 2010, one of the things that helped shape me is that I kind of did the exact opposite of what what sales experts and sales coaches were saying to do, because it didn't resonate with me. And, I had been stripping for 9 years, extremely transactional. There are some strippers who have a great client roster, and they mostly have a select group of clients that come in. That was not me. I never wanted to have relationships with my customers. Right. I lied about everything. I had my stage name, and then I had a fake real name, and it was just like lie after lie after lie, because I was concerned about my personal safety. And so I really just like to work the customers and just quick turnover.
Yeah.
So, very transactional. And then when I went to work in commercial real estate, that transactional kind of selling doesn't work when you are doing deals that are worth, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. You can't be transactional because it just doesn't work. Like people, they won't rent from you. They won't buy your buildings. You have to build solid, long-term relationships with people. And so, when I would hear other sales experts or sales coaches, telling people to sell your services in that way, it felt really gross to me. And I was like, I helped build a multi-million-dollar commercial real estate company, and I never once acted like this. I was never this cheesy or this gross or this transactional or this pushy, and I'm doing just freaking fine. So I started to develop my own viewpoints around what I felt was proper selling to have a long-term business. And I'm like, I don't want to just be doing this for 6 months. Like, this is the rest of my life. I know that this is my life purpose and my life calling. And I don't want to do it like this. So I started to develop viewpoints on what I call transformational selling versus transactional selling. So, transformational selling, it's like that person always feels great, no matter whether they purchase your product or service. So again, if you've ever been on vacation and you got stuck in the timeshare loop, I know. We went to Cabo last year and we had never been. And it's like, oh crap, these people are not helping us. We thought these were our hotel people. They're trying to sell the timeshare. And it's like, it's gross. It's like nasty. Or if you've, been in a Mac store or whatever, it's a completely different experience. And I did not want anybody to feel like they're in the timeshare sales experience. Yeah. The timeshare sales funnel, and they couldn't get out of it. And the other thing is that I always strive to get my customers results. I never just want to take their money. And I didn't feel like if someone felt like they had been pushed or prodded into one of my programs or working with me, that they would not be a good customer. Right. And I did not want problems. I did not want, chargebacks. I didn't want hassles from any customer. Yeah. And so I was like, I can't sell in that way, and I'm just not going to be that person. So that helped me. And then what I also discovered is that most of my clients, I work with entrepreneurs, had never had any kind of sales training, or if they had, it was the transactional kind.
Yeah.
And everybody,
the slimy kind.
And I'm like, I know why you hate selling.
Right.
So I turned my viewpoints on selling into a sales course. And, women would come to me and they would say, I used to hate selling, and this year I made over $100,000 because you taught me how to sell in a completely different way. And so that was very exciting for me because I've always had jobs where, you know, like I was a waitress before, I was a stripper. I did that for 7 years. And I've always said, like, if you know how to sell, you will always have money. You will always be able to support yourself, because selling is one of those things most people are terrified to do because they can't handle the rejection.
Right.
And number two, like your income opportunities are endless when you know how to sell.
Yeah. And you could take that to any business, even if you were to work for someone else or.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you call this transformational selling.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing is you leave people happy and satisfied.
Spoke to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? Can you give us any more juicy
For selling?
tips? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always want people to really share their expertise with other people. Because a lot of times we don't know what's available to us because that person has locked up their expertise. So again, whether you're selling a product or a service, you know, share your expertise. Give people that experience of working with you. So when I started my business in 2010, something that I did to build my business is I did these free business whippings. So people could get 15 minutes with me, and they'd get on the phone, and then, like, usually within like 5 minutes, I understood what their problem was. And then I would help them, like, figure that out.
Yeah.
So I did hundreds and hundreds of these, and this helped build my business. And also, even if people never worked with me, they would tell their best friend, "Oh, you have to get a business with me from Erika. It was awesome, blah, blah, blah." I just got tons of raving fans just from doing those, in addition to building my business. Now I do free business whippings on Instagram. So my
Nice.
Instagram handle is @dailywhip.
Yes.
And so, every 2 to 3 weeks, I'm doing business whippings on Instagram. And there I'm not doing, the 15 minutes, but people can ask a question, and I'm going to do my damnedest to give them a really good answer and help them on their way. So be really generous with knowledge. If you're, again, service-based industry, like a knowledge provider, be generous with your knowledge. I just had one of my clients in my Marketing Crush program emailed me today, and she said, "How do I share information that's complex in a simple way?" And I said, "Well, start out with little tiny micro ideas. And then not only will that help you develop your ideas, but it also help your audience, understand over time." And I said, "You could give all of your ideas away in your blog posts and in your emails and on your Instagram, but it's never, ever, ever going to replace the experience of you, because you have knowledge and you have expertise that only you have." And again, it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? Again, it's like, you've probably read, preparing for this interview, you read some of my Instagram blog posts. I know you read my book, but it does not replace talking with me or personally coaching someone. So
totally. And I will say that your availability it makes me feel like I'm meeting like a star, or I'm meeting because I saw you on Instagram, and I read your book, and I've been talking about you. And good thing I know your last name now, because I was saying it wrong before. But
I should a little memo to prep for interviews.
Yeah, that was my last name. But I love that, like that generosity. And I'm curious, do you know all of your clients personally, or do you do like group programs where you kind of like
group programs? But I work really hard to first name, last name, what their business is. And I just have this psychic sense where I can just pick up on someone's vibe. And then I remember it. And I almost always remember it forever. Like, it's just this weird, my sister has the same, it's like a weird genetic trait. We just remember those random things about people. We're also really good with dates. We have a lot of useless information rolling around in our brains. But then there's this like psychic sense that just picks up, and I just know, like, I just have a knowing of what to say. And then I have over the years learned to trust that voice.
Yeah.
And if something sounds really weird or kind of off the wall, I'll be like, oh, that's kind of a weird thing to say. I'll say, hey, I don't know if this is going to resonate with you, but this is what's coming up for me. So yeah, so being really generous, giving people the experience of working with you. And and I would say, like, don't be afraid to follow up. Like,
Yes.
I've hounded people for years that finally came and worked with me. There was one woman, and I gave her a free business whipping. Oh my God. I mean, it's probably like 2011. She just did my product design workshop, Triple Expert, in January.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Following you for years.
Yeah.
And again, you want to leave that person with a good impression of you, not to be like, ooh, I left them with a good impression, but it's like that, all of that stuff counts, because
Yeah.
I think it was Maya Angelou who said, people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, exactly. That's good advice. Thank you. Okay. So on the topic of selling, there's a little bit, there's a fine line between being generous and then not asking for the sale at the same time, like giving yourself away and then like being generous, but then not following it up with, hey, would you like to work together? Or
You have to be intentional. So do not confuse generous for being sloppy.
yeah. Yeah. You got to follow up with the offer.
Yeah. Make the offer.
Yeah. Make the
Follow
offer.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, this is something that you talked about in your book, why we don't make offers. We're afraid of rejection. Can you talk a little bit about like rejection and maybe how to get over it?
Yeah. Well, I never say get over anything because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to find a different strategy, or you have to experience like a true healing from that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that, again, if people don't understand what they're selling, they're going to take rejection really personally. But when you're like, oh, that person just doesn't need what I'm selling at this moment because of, X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
So again, if you're really, really clear, like I was having a conversation with someone about Marketing Crush. It's a content marketing program. And she said, this is exactly what I need, but it's just, I'm having a really tough time in life right now. And I said, what's going on? And, someone in her family had passed away recently. And I was like, I understand that. This is an intense program. So why don't we rally back when you're feeling better?
Yeah.
Because again, I don't want people to ever come and work with me and feel like they were pushed into it, or they weren't ready emotionally. Like with me is intense, and I demand a lot from my customers. So when you don't understand what you're selling, it's easy to take rejection personally. So, when I worked in commercial real estate, I never took it personally if someone didn't want to rent my 5,000 square foot warehouse space with a dot floor. Never, because it's like, it's not about me. When I was stripping, yeah, like there was definitely nights where it's like, ugh, this is really hard, especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
But then you just learn, it's like, oh, it's not about me. I mean, maybe it is, like, maybe they don't like, tall, skinny girls,
Yeah.
or, I mean, it could be any, I mean, I would have customers be like, you're too tall. I'm like, sorry. Right. You know what I mean? I can't chop my legs off.
Right.
And that's on them, and then you have other guys like, oh, I love tall women. They're the absolute best.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone just has their preferences, and that's totally fine. So a lot of it is a lack of experience. So if you, ask 100 people for the business and you're having these, conversations with them, like real conversations with them about it, you just get better and better at like fielding questions and objections, and you really get like, oh, well, maybe, and this is another thing that I love about having sales calls, is that maybe they didn't fully understand what my product or service is because I haven't done a very good job explaining it. Or maybe they missed that part of my sales page. Or maybe they don't understand that I have a 90-day guarantee. And so again, going back to really, really understanding your product or service, and then rejection won't feel like rejection. It'll feel like an opportunity.
Yeah. And as I hear you talking, it's almost like you're not making it about you. There's a non-attachment.
Right. And that's like you could also consider it a spiritual practice. I mean, Buddhists have been saying for thousands and thousands of years. Not attachment.
Right.
But again, like I understand when you've created something from your heart and soul, but again, if you like think of your service as a product, your product as a service, you become less attached and you start to see it as this tangible thing that you can pick up and you can hold and you can feel.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. So the thing that's going on in my head, which wasn't on the question list, is you're alluding to making your service a product.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
Yes. So I just want everyone to know, can I do a little plug?
Absolutely.
I have a really fabulous training. It's called the Product Confidence Workshop. And it's like a 3-hour long training where I go into all of it, and it's all free. I don't know when I'm doing it next, but if you are on my email list, you will know everything.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So this is one of the things, as I was telling you, I really struggled for the first 5 years that I was going to say stripping, but I was coaching. And when it's like I've been a shopper my whole life. Like I love shopping, which is why I have to constantly declutter because I'm just like constant rotation.
Yeah.
So think about your service as a product. Like it's something that you could like, here's my water bottle, right? Like you can pick it up. I can look at it. If I was doing like PVC, I could talk about like, oh, it's silicone lined. You don't have to worry about breaking. Oh, it's glass. So it's, you never have to worry about polluting the environment with plastics. Oh, it fits, 32 ounces of water. So you're always going to be, completely hydrated.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing when you have a service. And one of the things that, just a little tip here, is most service providers, they try to put too much into their product, which is why they don't get results. They try to do too much, and most people, especially if you have a coaching business, my friend Betty Jean Bell always jokes, yeah, when you're a coach, they have to do all the work and you take all the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Most coaches try to do too much, and people can't handle that. They can't handle that much information. They don't have the time. They don't have the energy. They already have so much else going on in their life. Yeah. And so if you scale down your service and you think of it like a product, you will start to eliminate. I call it eliminate to illuminate, eliminate to illuminate, eliminate to illuminate. You will start to scale back until that thing that you really love to do is there front and center. Then it's like, oh, that's the result.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. So like in my product design course, it's called Triple Expert. And so, the promise of the program is that I'm going to show you how to make a buzzworthy product or service. Like that's the promise. In Marketing Crush, I have a business partner in there. Her name's Nicole Edwards. What we do is we help people create content plans.
Nice.
And it's not an editorial calendar. You don't have to stick to it religiously. You're going to really, really understand the kinds of content that you love to create. Because I believe that when you're creating content that you love, it's super easy to be consistent.
Yeah.
Being consistent with marketing is the biggest challenge that any business owner will have.
100% agree.
Because you constantly have to be creating, and it's exhausting sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
So very, very simple results for those programs. And that is that was a challenge for me when I was creating these, because I have, 30 years of business experience. I can coach people on anything.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, what do I love to do the most? And I'm like, I love helping people create content, because that's where they come alive the most. Whereas like a sales page, it's kind of a one and done. You might update your sales page, twice a year or something like that. But creating content, it's like you really become creative, and it's the biggest challenge that people have. So think of that. So most people don't get results because they're trying to do too much, and you can always come out with another product.
Right.
Or they're doing things that they don't want to do, but they think they need to do.
Yeah. Like I have a friend who she does visibility coaching, but then I catch her building websites for people, and she hates websites.
Mm-hmm.
But people come to her and they're like, "Oh, do you do a website?" And it's almost like she abandons herself to say yes to the person, but she hates doing websites.
That's another thing. But I was thinking more specifically in your product. A lot of people they add on too much, and then it's like, oh, it's too much. Oh, well, I thought I needed to do that because that's what everybody told me I needed to do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so how do you start to build confidence in your business when you're in your marketing when you're just starting out?
So this is going to go back to, we're just going to rehash.
I love it. I
know, right? I'm like a two-trick pony over here. Coming back to really understanding your product or service. So, most people, when they start in a business, they're entrepreneurial minded. If they've ever, had a business or not before, they're like, oh, I have a really great idea. I'm ready to go out and do this thing. So they already have a level of confidence that other people might not have. So don't work so hard to get your personal confidence. I mean, yeah, there's things that like, I would not be confident on this, video interview if I hadn't done my hair and put on my makeup today and, all of those things and prepared for it. I looked at your question. Right. I would not be confident. I'd be like, oh my God, don't. So, do the things that you normally do to make you feel confident. But beyond that, it's like, don't overthink it. Like, because that's where most people go, is they're like, oh, it's me that's not confident. I'm the problem. And it's not true. So I've seen women who are just like so friggin' confident they could like take over the world, and all of a sudden they start talking about their product or service, and it's like, right. So you have to, again, go to your product or service and pull your confidence from your product or service. And if you're not confident in your product or service, you need to get to work. You either need to figure it out yourself, or you need to get, a business friend who can help you, or you need to hire, someone like me who can help you really understand your product or service and how to market it. Then once you understand your product or service, you're going to know how to market it. So most people, again, when it comes to marketing, they just create stuff on the fly, and they're like, I don't know if this is going to work. And they're not creating their marketing around their product or service. So, this is why they struggle, is because it's kind of like, I mean, this is probably, I don't know if this is a great example, but like, it's like if you came up with a TV show and all of a sudden you're talking about something else, you're like, wait, why aren't you talking about the TV show? Right. Don't you want to market the TV show? So, entrepreneurs do this I see it happen all of the time, is they're not pulling their marketing from their product or service. And I want to preface that with, like, I understand that with social media now, there's like another level of challenge that used to not be there before. Yeah. And so it's not just like, if you only marketed your product or service, people would be very uninterested in your marketing.
Then that's too much, right? Or it's too slimy.
Yeah. So you have to, again, this is where like having a lot of ideas and having a really solid content plan. So really, think about your content and create content that you feel good about. When you feel good about it, even if other people don't resonate with it right away, you're still going to have confidence. And, the other thing to think about is that, especially with Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, is like, there's an algorithm, and I mean, some hot story could be taking place and you've planned the best content.
Right.
All of a sudden it's like breaking news
Right.
and you get kicked to the bottom of the algorithm because everybody's looking at something else. So I always recommend that people get really solid on their content plan. And then once they're like, oh my God, I love my content, I'm obsessed with it, then dig deeper into analytics and, working more on their conversion tactics.
Got it. So it's like, don't overthink it and do what you love, something that you feel really good about, like create content that you feel really good
Yes, that
about.
you're excited about. Like if you are an audience of one, you would want to read that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Before you get into the more linear logistics and analytics and
Absolutely.
SEO and all of those things.
Absolutely.
Cool. I like that. That personal touch. Okay. So in your book, you give stripped down messages. And I'm wondering if you'll give us a stripped down message for all of those ladies who are out there hustling to build their businesses and do great things out in the world.
Yeah, the strip downs, I mean, they come from a stripper tip.
Yeah.
So why don't I share a stripper tip and then I will share the strip down.
Perfect.
So there was one night in particular, and it was a really slow night at the club. And, not strip clubs are like any other business. They have slow nights.
Right.
The restaurant, And I was like, I'm just exhausted from trying so hard. And very common for strippers, if the night is slow, they're like, it's the costume, right? It must be the costume, or it's my lip gloss, kind of like similar to what we were just talking. Like, it's not your costume and it's not the lip gloss, but we'd still be in the dressing room, like, putting it's a ponytail. It's a ponytail kind of night. That's their hair in ponytails, or they want pigtails or French braids or whatever. And so we'd be in the dressing room doing all these changes. It's like, oh, I'm not wearing the right perfume. Scrub down, put on a different layer of perfume. Like we're just trying every magic trick in the book. And when I was like, I'm so exhausted from trying these, doing all these costume changes. And it's just like, it's so slow. It's not worth it. I'm just going to have a good time tonight. And so like, that's exactly what I did. I'm like, I'm just going to commit to having the most fun ever. I'm going to be ridiculous. I'm going to ask for like stupid amounts of money just to see if I could get it. And I was like, I was doing circles around everybody. It's like, what is Bianca doing? How is she making so much money? She's racking up at the club. What is she doing? And I just was like, oh, I finally get it. It's my attitude. It's the energy that I'm bringing. It has nothing to do with what I'm wearing or what I'm not wearing. And that was a huge life lesson for me. And I remember when the recession hit in 2008, I was out to lunch with a colleague, and he was telling me that he was in financial services, and he was telling me that his clients were totally lacking confidence in the economy, and understandably so. And all of a sudden, remember when I told you, I said, well, if I can strip, I can do anything. Yeah. And I had like a ding, ding, ding. Oh, and I was like, hey. And I told him the story about the club and all the costume changes and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh, I get it. So we just need to find a way to like get their confidence back, and like this will bring the economy back or whatever. Again, I'm not an economist, so don't anybody like message me on Instagram and tell me I'm wrong. Just tell me a story that happened like 12 years ago. So but he really got that it was all a confidence game. And that's so much of what business is. It's really a confidence game. So again, any way that you can get confidence in your business, whether it's getting a new outfit, buying a lipstick that you love, or, turning your product into your service, turning your service into a product, or developing your viewpoints, or not doing cheesy elevator pitches. That's what you need is confidence. And having confidence, a lot of it comes from just having fun and just seeing what happens.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Erika. And why don't you tell everyone how they can find you?
Yeah, so you can go to, my website is dailywhip.com. And if you go to dailywhip.com/subscribe, sign up for my newsletter, because every Sunday at 7 a.m. PST, I send out a fun and daring sales and marketing idea every single week, like clockwork. And then you can also follow me on Instagram. I'm at Daily Whip, and you can pick up my book, Think Like a Stripper, right here.
Yes.
On.
Yay. Thank you so much for your generosity and for talking with us, Erika.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
For sure. Thank you for listening. This has been a Global Turn On production. I'm Leah Rose Barber, your host. Make sure you check us out at www.globalturnon.com. Until then,